Joining me now is a guy, again, who I'm going to spend a ton of time with. We've got the Combine in about 5 weeks' time, the draft obviously in April, but so much to discuss in between. Certainly on this day with the Chargers getting my coach, Jim Harbaugh, the voice on the radio of the Chargers, also part of everything that he does. Daniel Jeremiah back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, DJ?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you doing? By the way, have you started prep yet, running? What are we doing here, training-wise?
Prep. Let me think about this. Preparation? Is that what prep is short for? Well, I moved my run to April anyway during the April months at the Rose Bowl.
I always forget that.
Yeah. I run at the Rose Bowl because all Michigan men win there. I don't know if you noticed that. You know what I'm saying?
Nicely done.
Nicely done.
That victory lap. I mean, it is. You are about 10 strides into that victory lap.
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty more to go.
As soon as I cross the finish line, I'm going to look for a guy from Alabama to retire. You know what I mean? Like who wants a piece? That's what I'll be. As soon as I cross the finish line, who wants a piece? So at any rate, Harbaugh going to the Chargers. Tell me why this is the fit that everybody thinks it is. DJ,
I don't think there was really another option. I think it was the right time, the right fit for everything that he brings in. And I've been asked this a bunch, hey, what does Jim Harbaugh bring? And I'm like, well, when people get hired, you can hypothetically say, I think this or I think that. With Jim, there's some knowns. Like, he is going to have a physical, tough football team. They are going to be with a lot of enthusiasm. There's going to be a lot of energy and a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz that he's going to bring. And he's going to win. He's done it. He's done those three things everywhere that he's gone. And I was laughing when I saw, a bunch of articles about the salary cap. And, Jim Harbaugh doesn't know what he's inheriting there. Like, they have $35 million or whatever the number is over the salary cap. I'm like, he went to Stanford. He went to Stanford when USC was at the top of the mountain. Stanford was a laughingstock. I was scouting during those years. I went in and looked at what they had. I knew how hard it was to get players in there. And I thought, this dude is nuts. He thinks he can win here, and he beat USC year one. I don't think the obstacles are too great.
So then what you think? What do you think he's going to do with Herbert that nobody else has been able to do, or, for the lack of a better way of saying it, that Herbert has not been able to do for himself?
Yeah, I think less is more. I think I don't totally agree with some of the sentiment of that. Jim Harbaugh is there now. Justin Herbert is going to win MVPs. I'm like, Jim Harbaugh is not going to care about Justin Herbert winning MVPs. Jim Harbaugh is going to beef up the offensive line. He's going to get a big physical back. He's going to run the ball. He's going to take some of that pressure off of Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's going to be more efficient. Justin Herbert can do what needs to be done in clutch moments. I saw this with Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was the most talented player in college football. And for a 2-year period, it wasn't close. He was clearly the best player in college football. And most coaches would have said, oh, I'm going to take this Ferrari out on the highway. We're going to let him throw it 55 times a game. And he didn't do that. He asked Andrew to play efficient, play smart, protect the football, make plays when you have to. I think he'll take some of that load and some of that pressure off Justin Herbert.
Okay, so then what do you think Herbert will do better because Harbaugh's in the building with what he's bringing to the equation?
Well, I think being able to finish, especially this last year, Justin has had some amazing comebacks, during his brief career. But last year specifically, they had opportunities with the ball in their hand to go finish games, and they couldn't. A lot of it was offensive line, pass pro related, where he was getting heated up. I mean, it happened at the end of the Miami game. It happened at the end of the Dallas game, where they had the ball and a chance to go win the game, and they couldn't protect. So I think he's going to help get that fixed, and they're going to have some more answers for him to protect himself with control at the line of scrimmage, as well as having outlets. So I think that's going to help him, be able to get 2 or 3 of those wins that are just sitting there. As you know, every year that's it. That determines whether you're a playoff team or not. You're going to have a handful of those, 1-score games, 3-point games late. Can you finish those games off? He'll help that Justin Herbert do that offensively. Now, defensively, they need some pieces there before they can do the same thing.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. Who else on this roster do you think Harbaugh is going to identify as one of his guys? Cap, and let's not talk Cap here because he'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. Like he's going to want that guy, this guy, maybe not. You know this roster inside and out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I know there's been some talk, Derwin James has a pretty big number. I think it's like 19 million. Derwin James is a Jim Harbaugh style player. I mean, he plays with his hair on fire. He's tough. He's physical. He plays kind of, a real kind of a violent brand of football. There's no scenario I can imagine where he isn't a part of this thing going forward. They have the big four they need to make decisions on. You've got the two receivers, Keenan and Mike, have big numbers. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. And then you have Mac and Bosa have big numbers. So I would imagine, you're probably going to have one odd man out there in terms of being cut or traded. And then they can, you can do some things salary cap wise to extend guys out. I think Keenan, even though he's on the other side of 30, played at such a high level that I would think he would fit, what Jim Harbaugh desires and likes. But other Jim Harbaugh guys, Rashawn Slater, he's going to love because he can really move people in the run game. The one name that most people won't be familiar with that I thought, Harbaugh's going to love Tuli Pelotu, the edge rusher that they have from USC, who's just a real rough, rugged, tough football player. Kind of looks like a guy that's played for Jim in the past.
Daniel Jeremiah here on the Rich Eisen Show. 5th overall selection. Again, we don't know who the general manager is yet, but the fact that they hired Harbaugh first gives you an indication as to who might be the loudest and most listened to voice in the room when the Chargers are on the clock, when we're in Detroit.
Sorry, Jim. Nope, we're going in another direction.
You know what I mean? Like that doesn't appear to be happening. So what do you think here? Do you think he got a close look-see at one of the players in the national championship game, Daniel?
Yeah, I think we'll have a much better feel for what he wants to do and his vision based off the decisions they make with those 4 players that I just mentioned. If they were to, move on from Mike Williams per se, I would say, man, you're going to be staring at Rome Odunze, who he saw up close in that game against Washington, who is, to me, is like a Larry Fitzgerald type talent. Like, he is an outstanding player. I'm sure he would love his first pick to be a line of scrimmage player, is just kind of like, that's what we're about now is this toughness and physicality. But I think Odunze is one of those rare wide receivers who has such a physical presence out there that you still capture that, even though he's not an offensive or a defensive lineman.
And I just remember before I asked this question that when Pete Carroll went to Seattle, right, and everybody thought that he would just draft one USC guy after another, right, and then he didn't. Yeah. But there are so many Michigan guys available in this year's draft. Who do you think, knowing draft positioning and Harbaugh, who Jim might bring from his national championship team if he has the shot when they're on the clock, Daniel?
Well, I would give you 2 that would just jump immediately into mind. Austin Eckler is a free agent. You've had the luxury of watching a really good college running back in Blake Corum. He would make some sense there whenever that opportunity is.
What is that, second? Would that be a second?
Day 2, I would say comfortably saying day 2. So you're talking about second, third round.
Okay.
Depending on what happens with running backs, that's the conversation we'll have here in a few weeks. But that would be one. And Sam Still, to me, is just like a playmaker who's a leader. Everything I've heard, and you are around that team and know that team as well as anyone, everybody that I talked to said he was the leader of this group. So you've got somebody who's takes the football away, who's tough and feisty, and then also is a leader. And on top of that, knows your new head coach and what he wants to accomplish. That's one to me that I thought, oh man, he'd be a great addition.
And then the unknown. There's always that with Jim. Honestly, I said this at the top of the program, Daniel, that the entire conversation I've had with everybody over the last 3 weeks from the NFL or Michigan when they're guessing what's going to happen was always finished with the phrase, with Jim, you never know. So with Jim, you never know. That said, crystal ball for me, what you think he's going to bring that we just don't see or we can expect to the Chargers, the, if you will, Clippers in this town when it comes to football based on what the Rams have done. And then just in this town where, the Lakers and the Dodgers are at the top. And Jim, as you know, he's not just going to be quiet. He's going to make these comments every now and then that Los Angelinos might be like, huh, really? From the Chargers coach? So what do you got for me on that front, Daniel?
I don't want to ever try and, think for him or guess which way he's going to go because it's unpredictable. The only thing I just keep thinking, it wouldn't surprise me, and I don't know how he would do it, how he would phrase it or what he would say. I would just say what stood out to me when he went to Stanford and he did not show any deference to USC, and USC was the king of the hill at that time. And there was no fear in that dojo, and they set their sights on them immediately. Then you go to Michigan. Obviously, it didn't start out great against the rival, but that was always center of attention. It was well known that they had the Ohio State drill. They didn't call it that, but whatever drill they had where it was 9-on-7, it was physical, and that was with Ohio State in mind. They were the bullseye. He put the bullseye on the Buckeyes, and eventually he conquered that one as well. And then once they had beat them a couple times and he'd fallen short in the playoffs, they had a Georgia period because he was like, well, this is, forget them in the Big Ten. We've got bigger goals here, so we need to prepare for this team and put the bullseye on them. And then he ended up winning the whole thing. Nobody, and rightfully so, nobody's dared say anything about the Kansas City Chiefs. They are getting ready to play in their 6th straight conference championship game. But I have a hard time thinking that Jim Harbaugh is going to go in there and say, you know what, guys, we're competing for the wild card. The Chiefs, they own this division.
Yeah,
we're just going to try and we're the little engine that could down here. He's going to put the bullseye. He's going to put the bullseye on him now. And everybody can laugh because I remember people laughed when he did that at Stanford. I remember when the story broke. I think Bruce Feldman might have broke it about them having a Georgia period, and all the SEC people chuckled and laughed like, oh, Michigan thinks they can, look what's going to happen if they see the SEC. Well, nobody's laughing. So that would be my guess. Whether or not that got out or whether or not he said it publicly, I feel like that's the target.
Yeah, I was kind of moving in that direction to start the show as well. The one that I hit, I'm wondering what you think is at some point he might make some sort of offhanded remark at a podium about the stadium being filled with a lot of the opposing team's fans in there. Mm-hmm. And just like, hey, I could see that. I noticed, we had to get ready for the silent snap count, and in our own building, and we're doing our best here, and we're keeping our head down, focused on the prize, attacking, with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. But it would be nice, something like that, that variation. I think folks should get ready for that out here too.
I think that's a great point. That would not surprise me at all. I've seen the number of Chargers fans since I've been doing that for 6 years. I've seen it increase just about every year. Now at the end of last year when it got away from them, that was not great. But prior to that, I'd seen, okay, they're making a dent, they're growing. This is a chance for them with this move, I think, to generate some enthusiasm and to generate some excitement and turn it into maybe less a bowl game environment and more into a true home field environment. And
before we turn to this weekend's games with you, Daniel Jeremiah, one last one for you here, not to turn you into our insiders and not to turn you into Ian or Tom or Garofolo here, but any sense who might be coming with Harbaugh from Michigan? Is Jesse Minter going to be the DC there? What do you got for me?
Well, if I'm going to try and jump inside Ian's head, let me just try and just.
Oh, right yeah. I like it.
Right about here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Jeremiah.
I think Jesse Minter would definitely be coming. So I would be shocked if he's not coming.
I like
Can I
it.
Slide back up. Okay.
No, you got to get up. Don't hurt your back. You got a long day ahead of you. So you think he's coming? He's coming. Minter's?
I do. I think that once you make the commitment that they made to Jim Harbaugh, I think that you're pot committed and you are. Hey, what's the number? What do we have to do for you to be successful? I would imagine that would have been number one on his list. That has to get done.
Okay. Let's talk about Sunday's games. The AFC Championship game will come down to what, if you can boil it down, DJ?
I think the Chiefs have to get turnovers. And again, the Chiefs are so established and they are so good, and defensively they're great. When I look at the way the Ravens defense is playing right now, I don't see the Chiefs scoring a ton of points. They're suffocating everybody. And I don't think the Chiefs can really stretch them like you would need to loosen them up a little bit. So to me, they need to get turnovers and get some short fields and cash some of those in. I just think the Ravens defense, if you're having to drive 80 yards the whole game, that's going to be tough to pile up points. But the Chiefs defense is outstanding. And they've done, if you watch them in the postseason, Rich, every single tackle, they are punching and pulling at the football, doing everything they can to force turnovers. And they've made that a focus. I think they win. If the Chiefs win this game, I think not only they win the turnover margin, they probably win it by a couple. That would be their formula.
How about that? Okay, and then the NFC Championship game.
It's a tough one for Detroit. I mean, it's such an incredible story in what they've done. But, Rich, they've built their team to function in the middle of the field. Last week, you had Laporta and St. Brown. I think they combined for 17 catches. Well, now that's Dre Greenlaw and that's Fred Warner. That's the real estate you're trying to compete in. That's going to be difficult. They're going to have to hit some plays on the outside and over the top against the 49ers. That's where they're vulnerable. That's where you have to take your shots. That's not typically how Jared Goff individually likes to play. So they're going to have to get outside of their normal realm a little bit to win this game, in my opinion.
Well, and that's why I think it's a Jahmyr Gibbs game if they need to win, which is kind of crazy to sit here and say that, especially. I just remember we're sitting there in Kansas City and the Lions are 12th on the clock and they draft Jahmyr Gibbs and there was like a whoa aspect of this thing. Look at him now, right? DJ?
No, he's a great player. He's a great player. And then this is a preview of the discussion we'll have as we're sitting next to each other for all those hours at the combine. But the running back position, the argument's been framed the wrong way, in my opinion, where it's, do you take one in the first round? Do you not take one in the first round? Are they valuable? Has it been devalued? No, it's timing. When you have the quarterback in place and you've built up the lines and your team's ready to win, sure, take the quarterback in the first round because every carry he gets matters. When you're picking second or third and your team stinks and you don't have a left tackle and you don't have, quarterbacks, okay, like taking the running back there, you're wasting 2 to 3 years of his 6-year run. That doesn't make any sense. The Lions had the quarterback, they had the offensive line, they had all the key pieces, in terms of the edge rushers that are expensive. And so, yeah, absolutely take the running back, and he's been awesome.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not like he's a luxury. It turns out he could be a necessity. That's the thing about running backs that I always have an issue with, and we're going to have this conversation again. Like you said, at the combine, at the draft, the running backs aren't a luxury. They are a necessity. I mean, ask the Giants with what they need out of Saquon. It's Jonathan Taylor, when it all came down to it after everything that happened in the summer and everything that happened in the first 4 weeks of the season, when it all came down to it in a winner-go-home game, the Colts kept handing him the football, and he ran one in from midfield. So these guys are necessities in games like this, DJ.
Yeah, no question, although I know there's a Colts fan saying, I wish he was in on the last play of the game.
But that's exactly the point, right? I mean, so last one for you before I let you go. I'm going to keep asking you a question of this variation all the way up until we hear his name in Detroit, and it's probably the first one we're going to hear with Caleb Williams. The selection of Shane Waldron to be the offensive coordinator in Chicago, does that inform you at all of who the Bears are going to take first overall? I know you think it's Caleb Williams, should be Caleb Williams. Yeah. What do you think now?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a coordinator in terms of what Caleb can do physically. I don't think that you'd have to put him in a box and say he needs to play in this system from this, from this tree, so to speak. I think he can do anything. So, it didn't lean me in one way or the other in terms of that being the reason why they're going with Caleb. It just, to me, I have not seen anything to dissuade me from the fact that that's what they will ultimately end up doing.
All right, and you need to choose one before I send you on to your day, sir.
Yes, sir.
Who is more excited today? A Los Angeles Charger fan or an Ohio State Buckeye fan? Daniel, who's more excited today?
Well, I can tell you, my dad grew up in Cedarville, Ohio, and is a lifelong Buckeye fan.
Oh, I didn't know that. Now I know where it comes from. Now I know where it comes from. I thought it was Appalachian State this whole time.
No. Well, that didn't carry down to me. I didn't really adopt Ohio State as my team.
Okay.
But and then he's been in Southern California for 40 years and is a huge Charger fan.
Okay.
And so to answer Jim's question, it's my dad. He is the one.
He's excited today. All right. So yes. Which part is more excited? The Buckeye fan or the?
I would say I think the Chargers are going to be a playoff team this year, and there's a lot of roster building to be done. And I think eventually, hopefully they get all the pieces in place to go chase a championship. I think the Buckeyes now have a good looking runway to try and win the whole thing. So I would imagine the Buckeyes had a wonderful celebration yesterday.
Yeah, they're spending all that money on their team, and they got Jim now in the AFC West, and we'll see. Sharon Moore should be the coach by the weekend.
By the way, By the way, real quick, Rich, I've been, and I told you this before, I've been watching a ton of tape, and I've seen a lot of Michigan, and I know all the guys they lost, but they've got D tackles, they've got a tight end. I mean, they've got that cupboard is not as bare as people are making it out to be. So don't punt on this season just yet.
I'm not punting. I am not punting. You know what I am doing? I am just living my best life, DJ. And I've got my coach here in this town now, and the Chargers opening a facility
right
across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to run into him at Starbucks. It's going to be great.
I love it.
Who's got it better than me?
Whole milk, please.
That's
whole
true.
milk.
DJ, you're the best, brother. I'll see you soon.
See you, buddy.
Daniel Jeremiah at Move the Sticks right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.